Good morning, everyone. Welcome again to a new session at Educators Plus. I am Akarshi, your English faculty at Educators Plus. So students, as this crash course is running on this particular app, so we have completed till Victorian age, and you must have understood the concept which I have told you or explained to you in my previous lectures. In case, again, I'll ask you if you have any problem, you can just post in the comment section of that particular video and I'll be answering your questions. Okay? So in this lesson, basically, I will be touching upon the modern and the postmodern writers, and this is the last, will be the last video for the British literature. Okay, from the next class, I'm going to start from American literature. Also, students, I have noticed that you have some confusion regarding my classes. So I will be clearing that in this particular lecture, that my classes are on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 11 a.m. ओके 11 AM में हमारी मेरी थ्योरी क्लासेस होती हैं और 1 PM पे क्वेश्चन आंसर प्रीवियस ईयर्स क्वेश्चंस के क्लासेस होती है. ठीक है, सो प्लीज मेक अ नोट ऑफ इट एंड डू अटेंड द क्लासेस एंड आस्क योर डाउट्स इन द चैट बॉक्स सेक्शन. Okay, now please tell me in the chat box, am I visible and audible to you properly so that I can begin the class? Please let me know, am I audible and visible to you properly? Okay, fine, thank you. Okay, so let's begin. So today we are going to begin with the modern age. Okay, so now please let me know in the chat box, what do you understand by modern age? Okay, what do you understand by modern age? ठीक है, जैसे हमने रोमांटिसिज्म पढ़ा था, रोमांटिक राइटिंग्स के बारे में पढ़ा था, तो हमें जो रोमांटिसिज्म स्टार्ट हुआ था, दैट स्टार्ट्स फ्रॉम 1798 विद द पब्लिकेशन ऑफ द लिरिकल बैलेट्स. ठीक है, 1798 में हमारा रोमांटिसिज्म रोमांटिक एज स्टार्ट हुई थी. ठीक है, नाउ व्हेन 1837 में व्हेन क्वीन विक्टोरिया केम टू द थ्रोन. ठीक है, जब क्वीन विक्टोरिया स्टार्टेड रूलिंग इंग्लैंड, तब कौन सा एज स्टार्ट हुआ? तब विक्टोरियन एज स्टार्ट हुआ. Okay, now in 1890, okay, now people started questioning the identity of the man. Okay, now these writers started questioning that that the writer, what is the मतलब क्या उनका वजूद है, what is the वजूद, what is the worth of a man. ठीक है, man की क्या importance in life. So वो सब जब writers question करने लगे थे, then there is a new era emerged that is known as modernism. ठीक है, so now please keep it in mind that modernism emerged in 1890. Okay, now let's talk about modernism. So modernism is a kind of a literary movement that started in 1890, that I've already told you, and it actually remained till Second World War. And this actually shows the effect of World War on the man. ठीक है, now modernism begins with itself new kind of a social, political and cultural idea, and it is characterized by formal and technical experimentations. ठीक है, now the religious notion of the early period, like Augustan age में आपने देखा होगा, religious notions were there. Okay, people were actually writing for Christianity. उससे पहले भी आपने देखा होगा Restoration, Puritan, the most religious age. ठीक है, तो उसमें क्या था, religious notion or religious institution have a very great importance in the society. Now in the romantic age, what happened, the religious notion of this period was challenged and they were actually dismissed from the society. Now it also challenged the sense of belonging to a community. ठीक है, यहाँ पे कोई community नहीं होगी. A man has an individual identity. ठीक है, उसका individual self होता है, हर एक person दूसरे person से different होता है, हर एक का chaos, हर एक का turbulence, हर एक का insecurities different होती है. So आप एक community को characterize करके एक man की characteristic नहीं बता सकते हो. So this was the idea which actually emerged during the modern period of time, and the writers started focusing on the individual self. ठीक है, तो writers ने किस पे फोकस करा? फोकस ऑन इंडिविजुअल सेल्फ. ठीक है, तो आप देख सकते हो रोमांटिक में नेचर पे ज़्यादा डोमिनेंस था. विक्टोरियन एज में लाइक द लाइब्रेरीज, रीडिंग पब्लिक, एलीट क्लास, विक्टोरियन सोसाइटी. ओके, ऑल दीज वर एक्चुअली एम्फसाइज्ड. नाउ इन द मॉडर्निज्म एक इंडिविजुअल की क्या आइडेंटिटी है, सो वो आपको ज़्यादा एम्फसाइज करना था, एंड राइटर्स यूज्ड टू एम्फसाइज ऑन दिस पर्टिकुलर थिंग. Any problem? You can ask me in the chat box. Okay. Now, what are the other characteristics of the modern age? So basically, they actually have a new kind of realism which began during the modern age and which created experiment with the literary technique. ठीक है, stream of conscience. आपने अगर stream of consciousness सुना होगा, तो this kind of writing or technique emerged during this particular period. Okay, and the novels of this period are non-chronological in this form. So आपको एक chronology नहीं मिलेगी, आपको एक sequence नहीं मिलेगा novels में, आपको fragments मिलेंगे, alienation मिलेगा, subjectivity मिलेगी, ठीक है, all these things you will find in the modern novels. ठीक है, तो आपको ऐसा नहीं कि एक plot चलता जा रहा है, एक आदमी था एक particular जगह पर रहता था, उसको लोग मिले, then he found a group, और एक ऐसी पूरी एक sequence में story नहीं चलेगी, fragment में चलेंगी, in and out of the character होगा. Maybe the character has started प्रेजेंट टाइम पे स्टार्ट करा, फिर वो बीच पे जाके पास्ट टाइम का नरेट करने लगा, ठीक है. तो दिस काइंड ऑफ फ्रेगमेंट्स, दिस काइंड ऑफ एलिनेशन ऑफ मैन, दिस काइंड ऑफ सब्जेक्टिविटी वाज यूज्ड by the modern writers in the form of stream of conscience in this in the novel. So this technique was very much famous, okay, and they used to experiment with the narrative technique and different genres as well. Fine. Also they rejected the traditional forms of rhyme. ठीक है, जो कोई rules and regulation जो हमने Augustan age में देखा था कि उनका एक particular kind of a form होता था कि ऐसे ही सब लिखेंगे, वैसे उनका नहीं था. They rejected a traditional form. वो अपने आप से अपने हिसाब से चीजें they used to narrate, okay, and the narration of these novel moved from one level to another that created a disjuncted फ्रेमवर्क. ठीक है, तो जस्ट जॉइंटेड फ्रेमवर्क था, आपको डॉट्स कनेक्ट करने पड़ते थे. ठीक है, यू हैव टू रीड इट वेरी केयरफुली बिकॉज एक सी स्टोरी नहीं चलती थी मॉडर्न राइटर्स की, उनकी फ्रेगमेंट्स में चलती थी, बैक एंड फोर्थ होता था ऑफ द नरेशन. फाइन, इज दिस क्लियर एवरीवन? Okay, if it is clear, please let me know in the chat box. Okay. So now what are the other features of the modern age? So basically यहाँ पे मैंने बताया experiment होता था literary techniques का, and these early modernist literature belong to a separate phase as distinct from the followed form. ठीक है, and this kind of a age is of you can say the writers like James Wilde, Yeats, you know, James Joyce, Virginia Woolf. Their writings was characterized by formal comparison, okay, and their radical criticism of the society and a comprehensive address to the tradition. ठीक है, तो वो ट्रेडिशन वैल्यूज को इतना इंपॉर्टेंस नहीं देते थे. दे यूज्ड टू क्वेश्चन द आइडेंटिटी ऑफ मैन, मैन का सेल्फ वर्थ वो पोर्ट्रे करते थे, एंड विच विल बी डिफरेंट फ्रॉम द सोसाइटी. एंड उसका जो सेल्फ वर्थ होता था, उसका जो इनर सेल्फ होता था, उसका जो नरेशन बेसिकली आपको सोसाइटी से भी मिलता था, इन व्हाट सोसाइटी दैट पर्सन इज लिविंग इन. ओके, इज दिस क्लियर? फाइन. So as I told you कि stream of conscience बहुत ज़्यादा important टेक्निक थी, you should remember this. अभी हम आगे जाके कुछ novelists, कुछ authors discuss करेंगे, and you will find that in their works the stream of conscience has used heavily by these writers. ठीक है, and there's one more point of modernism made that one of the most striking facts of this 20th century poetry is the revolution of the poetic text in the use of the abstract philosophies. ठीक है, तो आपको you know myths दिखाई देंगे जो पुराने classical writers के थे. The myths were revived, the folklores were revived in this particular period, and the poet was no longer the composer who drew imagery from the nature and composed in the kind of self-indulgence and emotion. So आपका जो romantic age का emotional and sensibility to topic जो ये famous themes थे, they were disregarded by the modern writers, and they used to take the abstract ideas. ठीक है, folklore revival थे, पुराने myths revive हुए थे, okay, and poetry and the writings of these modern writers were complex, elusive and abrupt contrast. आपको writer के character के mind में जाके देखना पड़ता था कि what the character is thinking. ठीक है, उसका क्या motive था, वो क्यों सोच रहा है और ये क्यों सोच रहा है. अगर ये सोच रहा है तो उसका past से क्या relation है, पहले आपको उसके पास्ट पे जाना पड़ेगा, उसकी पूरी साइकोलॉजी समझनी पड़ेगी, देन यू आर एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड द यू नो द डिसीजंस और द एक्शंस ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर कैरेक्टर. सो लॉट ऑफ यू नो कॉम्प्लेक्स होता था, इट वाज नॉट इजी और नरेशन वाज नॉट एक्चुअली यू नो डायरेक्ट इन दीज मॉडर्न राइटर्स राइटिंग्स. फाइन, इज दिस क्लियर? If it is clear, please let me know in the chat box that you are ना थ्रू विद द मॉडर्न राइटर्स, बिकॉज आपको कोई राइटर्स पढ़ने से पहले आपको उसका बैकग्राउंड समझना पड़ता है, उसकी एज के बारे में समझना पड़ता है. तो दैट आई हैव try to cover in this particular slide. And one more thing, that these writers used to explore the multiple experience of modern mind. ठीक है, that's why I said that they used to focus on the individual self, कि आप एक सोसाइटी के बेस पे आप इंडिविजुअल को कैरेक्टराइज नहीं कर सकते हो. हर इंडिविजुअल का अपना अपना एक्सपीरियंस होता है जिसके बेसिस पे उसके फर्दर एक्शन बेस्ड होते हैं. ठीक है, दिस वॉज समथिंग द आइडिया विच वॉज पुट फोर्थ बाय मॉडर्न राइटर्स. So as you know that World War II was the main thing. So उनका जो repercussions थे, उनका जो terror, जो fear, the mind of the characters थे, वो भी these writers used to portray in their work. Okay, is this clear? Now let's talk about the first writer of today's lecture. Now today we are going to first discuss about Yeats. Now you must have heard or studied about GB Yeats in your first is Shaw. Okay, so George Bernard Shaw के बारे में हम पढ़ेंगे पहले, then we'll study about Yeats because ये उससे पहले आया था. ठीक है, now what you happened that George Bernard Shaw was an Anglo-Irish playwright. Okay, so आपको nationality भी पता होना चाहिए in writer की. So he was an Anglo-Irish writer. Okay, he was an Anglo-Irish writer who was famous during the modern age, and he was a critic as well, who was influenced by the you can say that Western theaters and the culture and the politics extended from the from the previous ages. ठीक है, so he used to write, he was an Anglo-Irish writer and he was a critic as well. ठीक है, and he wrote some very sparkling plays, and he in total have written 60 plays. In total उसने कितने plays लिखे हैं? He has written 60 plays, and the famous works of George Bernard Shaw, Man and Superman, Pygmalion, St. John. So these are some of the famous works. So Man and Superman. So one more work is there, Pygmalion. ठीक है, now this Pygmalion is based on the Pygmalion myth. And what was that myth? This was a myth from the classical literature. ठीक है, ये myth इसमें क्या था कि the Pygmalion was a sculptor and he was actually misogynist. He used to hate women, but he has made a statue of women, and he has made it so beautiful that he has fallen with that statue. Okay, and he didn't and he was not able to let it go. So it was a kind of a myth that an artist falls in love with his own art. Okay, and he is not able to overcome that beauty of that art. Okay, so this was a myth that was used by GB Shaw as well in his work Pygmalion. So please make a note of it and read about this work. Again, it's a very important work. Okay, and one more important thing, that this particular person, that is GB Shaw, is also a Nobel Prize winner in literature, and in 1925, ठीक है, किस एज में? 1925 में he was awarded a Nobel Prize. ठीक है, he was awarded a Nobel Prize in literature in 1925. Any problem? Please post in the chat box. Fine. Next is Arms and the Man. Now this is the most famous work of this GB Shaw. Also one more point that you should learn, that he has been inspired from his contemporary writer Henrik Ibsen. ठीक है, Henrik Ibsen से वो inspired था. Fine, you should remember this point. Okay, so the first work is Arms and Man. So you must have read in your UG about this work. So it is a very famous, or you can say it is a comedy by GB Shaw. So Arms and the Man क्या है? Comedy. Okay, so if you read this work, you will be end up bursting into laughter, because it is a really nice work. I have read it and I've really enjoyed it, so I will advise you all to please read this work, because this is a very fascinating comedy and you will really enjoy this work. Okay, now Arms and the Man. So this kind of a work is actually, the title of this particular work comes from the opening line of Virgil's Aeneid, of the arms and man I sing. ठीक है, there was some Greek quotation जिसका मतलब था of the arms and the man I sing, and it was there in the work of Virgil Aeneid. वर्जिल का जो वर्क है एनीड, उसकी स्टार्टिंग लाइन थी ऑफ द आर्म्स एंड द मैन आई सिंग, तो उससे इसके वर्क से ये टाइटल आर्म्स एंड द मैन हैज बीन अडॉप्टेड और टेकन बाय जीबी शॉ फ्रॉम द वर्क ऑफ वर्जिल एनीड. Okay, is this clear? Fine. Now next is philandro. Now, so first of all, let me discuss about the arms and the man. So basically, there is a young Bulgarian woman who is shocked by the Captain Bluntschli's view. So Bluntschli was a fiance of this woman, Bulgarian woman Raina Petkov, and uska she was very shocked by hearing about the views of her fiance Captain Bluntschli, which is related to war. Now he admits that he used to this Bluntschli was not the fiance of Raina Petkov. He was actually escaping from the army, and he got hidden in the room of Raina Petkov. Then Raina Petkov encountered this character, Captain Bluntschli, and she was shocked to hear about his views on war. Okay, why? Because this soldier, he admits that he uses his ammunition pouches to carry chocolates rather than carrying cartridges or bullets or pistol in that particular cartridge. ठीक है, so वो pistol or bullets carry नहीं करता था. As being a soldier, he used to carry chocolates, and that's why he was popularly known with the phrase as chocolate soldier. So किस work में chocolate soldier का जिक्र हुआ था? That was in Arms and the Man. Okay, chocolate soldier was there in the work Arms and the Man. Fine. Next is the philandro. Now, the plays of G.B. Shaw has been divided into pleasant and unpleasant plays. Okay, so there was a category of unpleasant play, जिसके अंदर 3 plays आते हैं. That is the Philanderer, Widower's House, and Mrs. Warren's Profession. ठीक है, so मैं ये अलग से लिख देती हूँ. Unpleasant plays was a category of G.B. Shaw's plays. ठीक है, उसमें कौन कौन से plays आते हैं? The Philanderer, Mrs. Warren's Profession, and The Widower's House. ठीक है, so ये 3 plays इसके अंदर आते हैं, तो उन तीनों ही बहुत important है when it comes to the net point of view. So please read these plays and you should understand the main motive or the theme of these play. Okay, and this particular volume, The Unpleasant Plays, was written to raise awareness of social problems and criticize the capitalist behavior. तो social problem society की इसकी, तो ये बहुत ही common characteristic है modern writers का कि अपने society को वो depict करते थे in their works, and they used to discuss the social problems as well. So when I discussed about John Scalworthy, problem plays को लिखा था जॉन स्केलवर्दी, तो एंड दैट प्रॉब्लम प्लेस अगेन यूज टू डील विद द सोसाइटीज प्रॉब्लम. ठीक है, सो दैट्स व्हाई this volume has also been written to raise awareness regarding the problems in the society and critique the capitalist behavior of the society people. ठीक है, okay, so Philanderer and Mrs. Warren's Profession has been there. So let's discuss about Mr. Warren's Profession, because इससे भी आपका question आ चुका था नेट में. So you should know the plot of Mrs. Warren's Profession. Now this play has been written by G.B. Shaw, that you know. ठीक है, and the title refers to the prostitution. So Mrs. Warren's Profession, and what was the profession of Mrs. Warren? That is prostitution. ठीक है, so that's why this was a very kind of a notion that was there in society, and this is the evil of the society which he is actually portraying in his work to criticize it. Okay, and this actually refers to prostitution, and the story centers around the relationship between Mrs. Kitty Warren. So the Mrs. Warren full name was Mrs. Kitty Warren, and her daughter, and who was her daughter? Vivi. ठीक है, so this was something about a dispute that when Vivi came to know that what her mother used to do for earn money, so she was very shocked. Okay, and she stopped talking to her mother, and the play focuses on how the relationship changes when Vivi learns what her mother does for a living. So she used to take her mother a woman of character, but when she came to know about her profession, that she is a prostitute, so after that how their relation changed. So this was all the story all about Mrs. Warren profession. Okay, so basically this was a question that what was the profession of Mrs. Warren profession. So it was prostitution. Fine. Okay, next is Man and Superman. Now this is again a very important play, because again it has been taken from the classical legend. Okay, so this play is written by Shaw in response to his demand to write a play based on the Don Juan theme. ठीक है, तो आपको मैंने जब पढ़ाया था बायरन, तो मैंने आपको बताया था that Byron has written a work Don Juan in which he was his work was criticized and it was an unfinished work. ठीक है, because here Don Juan has been portrayed as womanizer. Similarly, Shaw has also been pleaded to write a play based on the Don Juan theme, and that's why he has written the play Man and Superman. Okay, and the famous act of this particular work is Don Juan in Hell, and that is Act 3. ठीक है, so Act 3 is the famous act of this play which shows Don Juan in hell, because in Byron work he was portrayed as a womanizer. Fine. Also just remember that this is a series which is written in response to Shaw, to call for Shaw to write a play based on Don Juan theme. So this is the only thing you have to remember, and please read a summary of it in order to get acquainted with the characters as well. Fine. Any problem you can ask in the chat box. Okay, I hope it is clear. Next, I've already talked about Pygmalion, that it is based on a Pygmalion myth, and I've told you what is that myth. Next. Okay, W.B. Yeats. Okay, now let's talk about W.B. Yeats. So W.B. Yeats is again a writer of the modern age, and he is famous Irish poet. Okay, he was an Irish poet. And what is a remarkable thing that Yeats has founded out in his career, that he has founded the Irish literary theatre. And who were the other people with whose help he has found this theatre? It is Lady Gregory, Edward Martin, and George Moore. ठीक है, Lady Gregory, Edward Martin, and George Moore are the people with whose help Yeats has opened theatre known as Irish literary theatre. Okay, and it led to and what was the purpose of this theatre? To perform the Irish Celtic Place. Okay, to revival of the Irish folklores, Irish tradition, Irish myths and everything. So this theatre was opened in order so that people become acquainted with the Irish theatre as well. ठीक है, so मैं ये लिख देती हूँ, Irish Literary Theatre was opened by W.B. Yeats with the help of Lady Gregory, okay, Edward Martin, just take the spelling, okay, and George Moore. Okay, so Yeats, तो ये चार लोग थे इसका पार्ट. ये आपका क्वेश्चन में पूछा जाता है, हु अमंग द फॉलोइंग वाज नॉट द पार्ट ऑफ द आयरिश लिटरेरी थिएटर. सो आपको नाम इसके याद होने चाहिए सो दैट यू कैन एलिमिनेट इजीली इन द क्वेश्चन. Okay, any problem you can ask in the chat box. Fine. So now this actually the purpose of this theatre to revive the Irish drama and the Celtic plays. Now what are the Celtic plays? Celtic plays basically deals with the Irish folklore, Irish Gaelic literature basically. तो जो भी हमारा traditional literature होता था Ireland में, उसको अगर revive करना था England में, that's why Irish theatre was open to actually bring the Irish touch into the plays which were written in England. Okay, fine. Now the Yeats was a remarkable poet of this age, and he was a major contributor to the Irish literary writing, and Irish nationalism was a subject of his poetry, and the works are also influenced by his unrequited love for his lady love, that is Maud Gonne. ठीक है, तो मैंने जैसे आपको बताया था, let's talk about all the lovers or the beloved of the lovers. First मैंने आपको बताया था there's Amoreti, that was written by Spenser. तो स्पेंसर की उसने किसको डेडिकेट करा था? इट वाज डेडिकेटेड टू एलिजाबेथ बॉयल. ठीक है, एलिजाबेथ बॉयल को डेडिकेट करा था. नेक्स्ट इज देन फिलिप सिडनी हैज रिटन एस्ट्रोपेल एंड स्टेला. सो पेनेलोप, सिडनी की कौन थी? Penelope was the beloved who was represented as Stella in the work Astrophel and Stella. Petrarch की Laura थी, whom he has dedicated his rhyme parts, and it is a kind of sonnet which was dedicated to his beloved Laura. Okay, Browning की कौन थी? Elizabeth Browning. Now comes Yeats. So Yeats का जो basically जो beloved that was Maud and she was not ready to marry him again. This most of his work actually shows the unrequited love for his beloved Maud. Fine. Also just remember about Yeats that he founded the Rhymers Club with the collaboration of Ernest Rhys. ठीक है, उसने एक तो आयरिश लिटरेरी थिएटर तो फाइंड करा था, उसने राइमर्स क्लब भी फाइंड करा था. Rhymers Club has been founded by Yeats with the help of Ernest Rhys. ठीक है, Ernest Rhys was the person with whose help he has founded the Rhymers Club. And what was the Rhymers Club all about? So basically, this was a great London. It was a group of, or you can say, the club of London-based poets who used to meet regularly at Fleet Street Tavern, which is a place in London, to recite their verses. So whatever poems they used to write, जो भी वो work लिखते थे, वो एक जगह मिलते थे, and they used to tell or recite their poetries to each other. This was the kind of group which was found by Yeats as well. Also just remember, just like G.B. Shaw, ठीक है, जिसे G.B. Shaw को मिला था Nobel Prize 1925 में, similarly Yeats also received the Nobel Prize in 1923. ठीक है, Yeats को भी Nobel Prize मिला था in 1923. Fine, let's move ahead now. The Celtic Twilight. Okay, now let's talk about Celtic Twilight. The Celtic Twilight, as I told you, that the Irish literary theatre was a kind of a revival of the Celtic literature as well. And this literature is of Ireland, or you can say they were actually the Gaelic romances or Gaelic literature. Okay, so now this Celtic Twilight is a collection of folklores, and the work was inspired by the Celtic revival, and it actually refers to the Celtic Twilight as well. Okay, so just remember, it was a collection of folklores. ठीक है, तो जो फोकलोर जो रिवाइवल था सेल्टिक जो टाइम का था, जो फोकलोर जो आयरिश लिटरेचर से रिवाइव होकर इंग्लैंड में लाया जा रहा था, this was a collection of all those folklores. Fine, is this clear? Are you getting what I am teaching you? Please, if any problem is there, you can just let me know in the chat box. I'm going to answer it. Okay, and also if you are enjoying this session, please like the session as well, because that's will mark your attendance, and I'll come to know how many people have attended the session. Fine, or are you liking it or not? Next is Countess Kathleen. So Countess Kathleen is another very famous work of you can say Yeats, and it is written in blank verse. And this plays about the people who sell their soul to devil for food. ठीक है, तो जैसे हमारा मार्लो में भी दिखाया गया था the tragedy of the tragedy of Dr. Faustus. तो उसमें दिखाया गया था that the Marlowe has sold his soul to devil in order to have some powers. ठीक है, so similarly इसमें भी दिखाया गया था, it is about the people who used to sell, अपने जो soul को बेच देते थे, and they were used to sell their soul to devil in return of food. Okay, and just remember that it is written in blank words. Fine. Next is Easter 1916. Okay, now this is a very important work, and now please pay attention to what I am teaching you, because इसमें से questions पूछे जाते हैं. ठीक है, ये जो दो works हैं, Easter 1916 and the Second Coming, these are the most important works of Yeats. Okay, so please listen to it carefully. Okay, so what I am teaching you. Now this poem is by Yeats, and it is about Easter rising. Okay, so this poem was written by Yeats as a collection of the it was published in the collection like Michael Robards and the Dancer. So एक collection, the poetry collection था Yeats का, Michael Robards and the Dancer. In that collection this poem was published, and it actually begins with the narrator exchange of polite meaningless words with the revolutionary prior to the uprising. तो Easter Rising से पहले, तो what the narrator of this particular poem used to extend meaningless words. Just please mind this, he used to extend meaningless words. As I told you, meaning was the least priority of the modern writers. ठीक है, it was something depending upon the reader to draw meaning from it. So that's why fragments में होता था, alienation effect होता था. So these were kind of things which were there. So writers were not writing to have a meaning out of it. ठीक है, so he was the abstract, or you can say the abstract world was the main quality of the modern writers. ठीक है, now he have exchanged some words with the revolutionaries, and it also refers to the various figures associated with Easter uprising. तो जो भी ये actually real story से inspired है, and whatever the revolutionary were there during the Easter rising, it has been described in this particular poem. And who were those revolutionary? It was you can say that Countess Mackwicks, just check the name, Mackwicks was the name, Patrick Pearse was there, Thomas Mackenshaw was there. So all these revolutionaries were there in this poem. Okay, and the very important point of this particular poem is that it made allusions to Shakespeare play Hamlet. ठीक है, इसका किसको रेफर करा था? Hamlet को. ठीक है, it has allusions to Shakespeare play Hamlet. Fine. And also remember this, there's a famous line of this poem, a terrible beauty is born. This is the most famous line of the Easter 1916. A terrible beauty was born. And this terrible beauty is a reference to Helen of Troy. ठीक है, ये किसको रेफरेंस दिया था इसने? इसको दिया था हेलेन ऑफ ट्रॉय को. So this, as we know that because of her beauty, there was a war between the two nations. So that's why he said that in this Easter uprising, it was also a kind of revolutionaries going to fight a war. So unko bhi, that's why the famous line of this particular poem is terrible beauty is born, which is actually a reference to Helen's beauty. Okay, any problem, please post in the chat box. If you're not understanding something, I will explain you again. Okay, or in case you have any other doubt, you can also post in the chat box. Now the next is the Second Coming. Now the Second Coming is another very famous work of Yeats, and it has a Christian imagery regarding the apocalypse and the Second Coming, allegorical to describe that atmosphere of the post-war Europe. तो जो भी उसमें यूरोप में after World War II जो भी scenario था, that has been described in this particular Second Coming, and the famous imagery of this particular poem is the Geyer imagery. ठीक है, so ये आप याद रखना, the Geyer imagery is a famous imagery of this work on the Second Coming. ठीक है, और Falcon and Falconer ये भी एक बहुत important imagery है इस particular work की. And let's talk about the famous line of this poem. So basically the famous line of the poem are taken by Chinua Achebe as the title of his novel Things Fall Apart. Okay, so what was the famous line? That things fall apart, the center cannot hold. ठीक है, तो जब आपका जो एक main force होता है, if it fails to hold the things, so things will ultimately fall apart, वो बिखर जाएंगे. So this things fall apart phrase has used by the African writer Chinua Achebe as the title of his novel Things Fall Apart. ठीक है, तो आपको याद रखना है कि किसने ये लिया था? Chinua Achebe, who is an African writer. उसने जो novel थी Things Fall Apart, that the title of that particular novel has been taken from the Second Coming by Yeats. Is this clear? Okay, if it is clear, please let me know in the chat box. Now, the last poem that we're going to discuss is Sailing to Byzantium, and it comprises of 4 stanzas in Ottiva Rima. And you should remember that it is actually a journey to Constantinople, that is a Byzantium. This is a metaphor of Byzantium, and Yeats actually explores his thoughts and how immorality, art, and the human spirit have converged. ठीक है, so ये अपने thought during his journey he used to explore his thought, and all these thoughts have found a pattern in the form of the poem Sailing to Byzantium. Is this clear? Okay, so that's all about Yeats. Let's move to the next writer. So जितने भी मैंने important points बताए हैं, just make a note of it and read about Yeats because he is again a very important writer from the examination point of view. आप कोई भी एग्जाम देने जाओ, assistant professor का TGT, PGT, नेट, सेट, कुछ भी देने जाओ, ये Yeats तो बहुत important एक आपका portion make करता है. So please just read about the Yeats in further detail. Fine. Now T.S. Eliot. Let's talk about T.S. Eliot. So he is an again a very important writer of this particular age, and you must have heard about T.S. Eliot in your UG and PG exam as well, and have read about this particular writer. Okay, so this T.S. Eliot, you know that he was a major figure of the English literature, who was both as a poet and a critic. ठीक है, जब मैं लिटरेरी क्रिटिसिज्म की क्लास में लेके आऊंगी एज सेशन, सब उसमें आपको टीएस इलियट के कुछ वर्क्स पर बढ़ाऊंगी जो एज अ क्रिटिसिज्म पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से इंपॉर्टेंट है. बट हेयर व्हाट आर इंपॉर्टेंट फ्रॉम द लिटरेचर पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, तो वो उसको आई हैव मेंशन ओवर here. ठीक है, and he was actually he described himself as a classical in literature and royalist in politics. ठीक है, and Anglican in religion. ठीक है, this was something given statement given by T.S. Eliot for himself. Now the first poem that comes into play is Ash Wednesday. ठीक है, now this Ash Wednesday is also known as the conversion poem. Okay, just remember this Ash Wednesday is also known as the conversion poem, and it is the first work which is written by T.S. Eliot after conversion to Anglicanism. So he was a Catholic in religion. Later on he has converted to Anglicanism. So that's why his journey of conversion to another branch of Christianity has been expressed in Ash Wednesday. That's why it is known as conversion poem. ठीक है, so किसमें conversion हुआ था? He was converted to Anglicanism, from Catholic to Anglicanism. ठीक है, is this clear? Okay, let's talk about four quatrains. So this four quatrains is again you can say the collection of four poems. That's why the word quatrain is there, because it has four poems. Four poems का ये collection है. And what are these four poems? The four poems is the Burnt Norton, then it is you can see the East Cooker, the Dry Salvages, and Little Gidding. Okay, Little Gidding, this is something. Burnt Norton, East Cocker, the Dry Salvages, and Little Gidding, these are the four poems, and these four poems has been depicted in this particular work, the four quatrains. Fine. Yes, good morning Devendra. So this was all about four quatrains. ठीक है, so Burnt Norton, East Cocker, the Dry Salvages, and Little Gidding are the four poems of this collection, four quatrains. Okay, next is Sweeney Agnosticis. So Sweeney Agnosticis again, work by Yeats, and it was first attempt in writing a verse drama. ठीक है, so it is a first verse drama that has been written by Yeats. Drama in the form of poetry. So this was written by Yeats as a verse drama. Just remember that it is the first verse drama that is written by Yeats. Okay, is this clear? Any problem? Fine. Now just also remember that it is actually not a very complete piece. Okay, it is unable to complete it in his lifetime, so it is kind of an unfinished work. Okay, and next is Mother in a Cathedral. So Mother in a Cathedral से आपको एक बार क्वेश्चन आया था नेट में कि who was the person who was murdered in this particular work. So just first of all remember that it is a verse drama like Sweeney Agnosticis. So Sweeney Agnosticis was the first attempt to write the verse drama, and then when he became well versed in this particular art, so he has also written Murder in the Cathedral. And who was the person who was murdered in this particular work? It actually shows the assassination of Archbishop Thomas Becket at Canterbury. So if you have heard about Canterbury Tears and you have followed my lecture, so you must be knowing that in that 29 pilgrims were actually got collected in Tabard Inn and they were going to the सेंट थॉमस बेकेट श्रिन ऑफ कैंटरबरी. तो उसमें वही जो थॉमस बेकेट का फिगर था इन कैंटरबरी, उसका असैसिनेशन और उसका मर्डर दिखाया है इन दिस पर्टिकुलर वर्क. ओके, एंड दिस okay, so just you have to remember this. Okay, so this was the only point that was asked in your exam, that who was assassinated in this work. It was Saint Thomas Becket of Canterbury. Okay, Saint Thomas Becket of Canterbury has been assassinated in this particular work. Okay, let's move ahead now. Next is the poetry collection, proof work and other poems, observations. So you must be knowing that it contains poems, and the famous work of this particular collection is love song of J. Alfred Prufrock and portrait of a lady. ठीक है, इसमें दो works आते हैं, please make a note of it. That Prufrock and other observation में there are two works. One is the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock and next is the portrait of a lady. So they form a very important part of the poetry collection, Prufrock and other observations. So now please read about the character Prufrock because ये भी बहुत important है एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से, एंड इसके बारे में आपको लव सॉन्ग ऑफ जे एल्फ्रेड प्रूफॉक से भी क्वेश्चंस आते हैं. ठीक है, सो प्लीज रिमेंबर दिस वर्क. ओके, नेक्स्ट इज द वेस्टलैंड, द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट वर्क. इसको तो मैं अलग से आपको पढ़ाऊंगी बिकॉज इसके तो आपके हर एग्जाम में क्वेश्चंस आते ही आते हैं. द वेस्टलैंड, इट इज एक्चुअली कंसीडर्ड द पैस्टिशियर ऑफ द मॉडर्न सोसाइटी. ठीक है, जो मॉडर्न सोसाइटी में जो भी इल्स थे, जो जो नेगेटिव फैक्टर्स थे, ऑल दैट बीन डिपिक्टेड इन दिस पर्टिकुलर वर्क द वेस्टलैंड. तो आपको जो भी chaos inside the man, alienation of a man, or you can say the individual worth, okay, abstract ideas, and all these things has been depicted in this particular work the wasteland. Okay, how the sequence doesn't follow, life is meaningless, किसमें आपको meaning find करना है, man is a individual in itself who actually goes through a journey. So all these things, the pastiche of modern society has been there in the wasteland. Okay, fine. Okay, now can you just if you have studied about this wasteland, you must be knowing that Eliot dedicated the wasteland to Ezra Pound. ठीक है, तो किसको डेडिकेट करा था? So actually Ezra Pound was the editor of this particular work Wasteland, and when she after editing it handed over to T.S. Eliot, he was so impressed that he has dedicated to work to Ezra Pound. Now, who was Ezra Pound? Ezra Pound was an American poet. American poet था, and उसको T.S. Eliot ने ये अपना वर्क वेस्टलैंड डेडिकेट करा था. So please remember this. Okay. Now again, the most important the part of this particular work, the wasteland, is it has been divided into 5 sections. Okay. चलो आप मैं आपसे क्वेश्चन पूछती हूँ इन द चैट बॉक्स. कैन यू लेट मी नो व्हाट आर दोज सेक्शंस इन विच द वेस्टलैंड हैज बीन डिवाइडेड. जरूरी नहीं आप पांचों के पांच बताओ. इवन इफ यू नो द नेम ऑफ एनी वन और टू सेक्शन, यू कैन जस्ट पोस्ट इन द चैट बॉक्स. प्लीज लेट मी नो व्हाट आर द 5 सेक्शंस ऑफ द वेस्टलैंड. यस, आई एम वेटिंग. प्लीज लेट मी नो इन द चैट बॉक्स. What are the sections of the wasteland? So basically the wasteland comprises of 5 sections: the burial of the dead, a game of chess, of the fire sermon, death of water, and what the thunder said. ठीक है, so the game of chess, so okay, the game of so burial of dead. Okay, the first is the burial of dead, then the game of chess, then the fire sermons, then death of water, and the last is what the thunder said. So you have to remember the names of these 5 sections because ये भी आपके एग्जाम में पूछे जाते हैं. ठीक है, तो सीक्वेंस पे लगाने को बोल देते हैं या फिर आपको नेम पूछ लेते हैं. ठीक है, so please remember the name of all these 5 sections of the Wasteland. Okay, and what was the main theme of this particular work, the Wasteland? So the Wasteland suggests the theme of barrenness, ठीक है, decay and death in society. Okay, so barrenness था because life is meaningless, life meaning found कर रहे थे आप, they were decay because of the world war का जो भी effect आया था लोगों में, that has been led to actually barrenness. ठीक है, लोगों को समझ में नहीं आता what to do in life, they have lost the meaning of their life and it actually led to decay and death. There were thousands of death, lakhs of death, you can say, बहुत ज़्यादा death हुई थी, bloodshed था. So all this kind of a negative things gave a wrong impact on the society, and that's why the barrenness or decay and death has been shown in this particular work. Okay, and what other things that have been portrayed in the Wasteland? The sense of desolation and social emptiness has been suggested through religious themes. ठीक है, तो कुछ imagery, religious imagery has been there in this particular work, and उससे desolation or the social emptiness दिखाया है कि man is alone in his life. Okay, it is a duty of a man to actually lead his life. So that's what kind of idea has been there in the Wasteland. And in this poem, Eliot projects a complete view of civilization, a human history, and the quest for salvation. ठीक है, तो हर किसी को salvation में जाना था, तो that the quest has been shown in this particular work, the Wasteland. Yes, very good Devendra. The game of chess is the second part of the Wasteland. So आपको ये order में याद रखना है, the burial of dead, the game of chess, fire sermon, death of water, and what the thunder said. So ये आपको order याद रखना है from the Wasteland. Okay, so please make a reading of the Wasteland because again it's a very important work. There are innumerable videos available on YouTube as well. Also you can go for Spark Notes or a kind of Wikipedia, or if you are having a time, so then you can go for the original text of Wasteland because you cannot skip this text. Again, it's a very important text from examination point of view. Fine. Okay. Next is, okay, Ash Wednesday I've already covered. Just cut it because Ash Wednesday मैंने आपको बताया था conversion poem है and it shows the conversion of TSCF of Catholicism to Anglicanism. So इसकी journey उसने इसमें बताई है. Fine. Next, Graham Greene. Now Graham Greene is again a very important writer of the modern age. So मैंने सारे इस पे important writers mention करे हैं जो भी आपके एग्जाम्स में आ चुके हैं, जिनके वर्क्स आपके एग्जाम में पूछ चुके हैं. So all these writers and the novelists I have tried to mention in this particular lecture. So you should remember this, Graham Greene was a novelist and a playwright, and he was his writing shows the moral dilemma. ठीक है, आपको उसकी writing में एक moral dilemma देखने को मिलेगा, kind of a choice between good and evil, जो भी आपको medieval time का जो आपका ये होता था themes की conflict between good and evil, what is good and what is evil, तो आपको जो डॉक्टर फॉस्टर्स में भी ये आपको conflict देखने को मिला था. तो same kind of a choice of good and evil has been depicted in the Graham Greene works as well. Also, it actually gives a variation of popular forms. जो भी जो popular themes थे modern writers के, तो उसमें भी आपको variation देखने को मिलता है in the works of Graham Greene. और morality and the kind of a conflict of good and evil, वो सबसे ज़्यादा dominant theme है in his writings. Okay, now the first work is the Power and the Glory. So Power and the Glory, like मैंने तो अपने UG में पढ़ा था, so you must have also studied about the Power and the Glory if it is prescribed in your course. So this is a novel which is set in Mexico. ठीक है, ये कहाँ novel set हुई है? In Mexico. Now ये आपको बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है, प्रीवियसली इसका क्वेश्चन है, मैच द कॉलम्स में आया था कि आपको ग्राहम ग्रीन की नॉवेल्स दे रखी थी, साइड में उसके सेटिंग्स दे रखा था, एंड यू हैव टू मैच द सिटी विद द नॉवेल. सो प्लीज रिमेंबर द पावर एंड द ग्लोरी हैज बीन सेट इन मेक्सिको, एंड इट शोज द बेसिकली यू कैन से इट डिस्क्राइब्स द लास्ट वॉन्डरिंग्स ऑफ अ विस्की प्रीस्ट. ओके, देयर वाज अ प्रीस्ट हु वाज फेमसली नोन एज विस्की प्रीस्ट. Okay, so he was a person who was abided to Christianity till his last breath, and he continued to function as a Christian, or you can say as a priest till the end of his life. And he is contrasted with another character, that is Padre Jose. There was another character, Padre Jose. So he was contrasted, or you can say the contrasting character to whiskey priest. By because this priest, Padre Jose, he's also a priest who accepted, you can say that, marriage and humiliation. ठीक है, so this whiskey priest was abided by the Christianity that he will not marry, and he continued to abide by it. But this particular priest, Padre Jose, he actually accepted marriage and humiliation in the end of the novel. So this was all about the story, the power and the glories. Okay, so the power चाहिए या फिर आपको glory चाहिए in the form of mere trifles of life. ठीक है, so then next is heart of matter. ये भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट वर्क है, हार्ट ऑफ मैटर. सो जस्ट टाइटल यू हैव टू रिमेंबर, इतना इसका डीपली नहीं जाना है. सो जस्ट अंडरस्टैंड द सेटिंग. ओके, सो दिस नॉवल द हार्ट ऑफ द मैटर हैज बीन सेट इन वेस्ट अफ्रीका. ठीक है, ज़्यादातर इसका क्वेश्चंस में आपका इसका ग्राहम ग्रीन का सेटिंग्स पूछी गई है. सो आई एम जस्ट फोकसिंग ऑन सेटिंग्स. ठीक है, इतनी ज़्यादा डिटेल में उसकी नॉवल के बारे में इतना नहीं जाना जाता है. सो जस्ट रिमेंबर द सेटिंग्स फॉर द सेक कि इट माइट कम अगेन इन द एग्जाम, और ये पूछ चुके हैं आपसे पहले. ठीक है, सो दिस सेट इन वेस्ट अफ्रीका एंड इट एक्चुअली शोज evokes and kind of a, you can say that, heat, or you can see that there is an area where it is dominated by cockroaches, vultures, struggle, and this actually shows a struggle to actually have a faith in life, and concept of justice and religion has been showed ki this the society is corrupt and how you are able to salvate yourself in the society. Again, the good conflict between good and evil has been shown in this work, the heart of the matter. Next is the end of the affair. So this end of the affair is again a novel of wartime, as I told you, post World War II. The time has been depicted in the writers, or the modern and the postmodern writers. Okay, so it is a kind of a novel which actually depicts the wartime, and it shows a love affair with strong religious touches. ठीक है, so ऐसा नहीं था कि love affair was strangled, उसमें religious touches भी दिया गया था कि how people are actually again having a conflict of good and evil, rather to go on the path of justice, of religion, or you can go on the path of pleasure, because life is because मतलब जो मीनिंग जो एक मैन फाइंड करता था अपने लाइफ में, उसका स्ट्रगल हमेशा उसकी वर्क्स में दिखाया गया है. सिमिलरली एज बीन शोड इन द एंड ऑफ द affair. Fine. Next, Brighton Rock. So Brighton Rock is the last book which is written by Graham Greene. Only the title you have to remember, and this novel has been considered as a novel of entertainment. ठीक है, इसको novel of entertainment भी बोलते हैं. ओके, सो एंड ऑफ अफेयर, आपको इसमें वॉर टाइम लव अफेयर देखने को मिलता है, which is actually having a religious touches as well, conflict between good and evil. Now one more work is there of Graham Greene that is quite American, and this novel is set in Vietnam. ठीक है, एक और वर्क है ग्राहम ग्रीन का, द क्वाइट अमेरिकन, which is being said in Vietnam. Okay, so I was telling you settings, तो मुझे एकदम से ये वर्क याद आया, बिकॉज जो क्वेश्चन आया था आपके नेट में उसमें ये वाले भी वर्क मेंशन था, एंड द राइट ऑप्शन फॉर दिस वर्क वाज वियतनाम. ओके, so please remember the setting that quite American has been set in Vietnam. Is this clear? Okay, let's move ahead. Now William Golding. So William Golding was again a very good writer, and ये जो आपकी उसके वर्क है, The Lord of the Flies, is a famous work. इसको तो आपको रट लेना है, because Lord of the Flies से बहुत क्वेश्चंस आते हैं in your examination. So आपको जो different characters में रैल्फ, पिगी, जैक, इनके भी symbolism पूछ लेते हैं कि what this particular character represents. ठीक है, so this Lord of the Flies is a very kind of a children novel. यहाँ पे एक group of children होते हैं, and it is a kind of a dystopian novel. ठीक है, ये यूटोपियन नॉवल नहीं है, डिस्टोपियन नॉवल है, बिकॉज इसने डिस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ सोसाइटी बताया है. बिकॉज मैंने बताया था जो वॉर का, जो वर्ल्ड वॉर का जो इफेक्ट था, दैट वाज शोन इन द सोसाइटी, एंड द सोसाइटी वाज एक्चुअली, मैन वाज लूजिंग हिज मीनिंग ऑफ लाइफ, मैन वाज एक्चुअली लेड एस्ट्रे, एलिनेशन था उनकी लाइफ में. ठीक है, डिसजंक्टेड फंक्शनैलिटी थी. तो ऑल दीज वर द नेगेटिव इफेक्ट्स ऑफ द वॉर which had been taken place. That's why the society which was depicted in the most of the modern writers were dystopian society. Okay, the people are not having belong to the society, they are individual self, and हर किसी के अंदर अपना अपना chaos चल रहा होता था. ठीक है, so that was a kind of a novel, it is dystopian novel. ठीक है. Also remember that it is a very first novel which was written by William Golding, and in the plot there was an airplane that was carrying a party of school children and it got crashed in a deserted island. ठीक है. जो plane was flying जिसमें स्कूल के बच्चे थे and it got crashed and the plane landed on a deserted island, and the boys who actually came out of the plane, they were led by two boys, that is Ralph and Piggy. कौन से दो बॉयज थे? रैल्फ एंड पिगी. ठीक है. नाउ दिस पिगी इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कैरेक्टर हु एक्चुअली रिप्रेजेंट साइंस एंड रेशनैलिटी. तो व्हेन पिगी का जब उसका जो स्पेक्स था जो वो ब्रेक होता है, इट एक्चुअली शोज द लॉस ऑफ रीजन एंड रेशनैलिटी इन द कैरेक्टर्स. एंड रैल्फ, वो उसका जो सिंबल था कॉर्न शेल का था, इट वाज अ काइंड ऑफ अ सिंबल टू रिस्टोर पीस एंड डिसिप्लिन इन द society. Okay, and these two boys tried to actually set a democratic society which actually falls. And who was who was the reason for the fall of the democratic society? It was Jack. Okay, so here Ralph, Piggy, Jack, these are all the characters. Now Jack actually shows the uncivilization and arrival of barbarism. ठीक है. People were not civilized, उनको manners नहीं थे, उनको पता नहीं था how to behave. So this kind of a society has been represented by Jack, and the terror rules under the dictator Jack. Okay, जो भी terror वहाँ पे होता था, the people are scared of Jack, and he was a kind of dictator, and the two boys are killed. Okay, in the end. Or it is only after the arrival of rescue ship in the end the civilization was restored. Okay, जब तक वो island में थे, you can see the different symbolism of the modern society in this particular novel. And in the end, when the rescue ship came to actually take all the boys who were stranded on that island, that marked, or that was a symbol of the arrival of civilization in the society. Fine. So मैंने आपको important symbols बता दिए हैं. Just make a reading of it to know more about this novel, because इससे भी आपके like most probably 2-3 times questions आ चुके हैं. Not only नेट सेट और PhD and TGT, PhD entrances में भी ये वर्क पूछा जाता है. So please make a reading of this work. Next is the Inheritor. So just the names you have to remember. इसके ज़्यादा आपको सिर्फ वर्क जो पढ़ना है वो लॉर्ड ऑफ द फ्लाइज ही पढ़ना है. बाकी जो मैंने वर्क मेंशन कर रखे हैं, ओनली द नेम्स यू हैव टू रिमेंबर, बिकॉज इतने ज़्यादा डीप में क्वेश्चंस नहीं पूछे जाते. ठीक है. एंड दिस द वर्क इनहेरिटर, इट डील्स विद द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ प्रिमिटिव लाइफ. ओके, सो यू शुड रिमेंबर इट डील्स विद द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ प्रिमिटिव लाइफ. प्रिमिटिव लाइफ. ठीक है. It deals with the theme of primitive life. And next is Rites of Passage. So Rite of Passage is a work by William Golding who has won the Booker Prize. ठीक है. This work has won the Booker Prize. Just remember that. ठीक है. उसका ये जो Rites of Passage is a famous work by Golding which has won the Booker Prize. Okay. Thank you for the response. Fine. नेक्स्ट इज रुडियार्ड किपलिंग. अगेन वाइट मैन बर्डन इसका फेमस वो है टाइटल है, और कैन से फ्रेज गिवन बाय किपलिंग. नाउ दिस रुडियार्ड किपलिंग अगेन अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट राइटर, एंड यू शुड नो अबाउट दिस पर्टिकुलर राइटर बिकॉज ये भी आपको एग्जाम में आता है. एंड ही वॉज बॉर्न इन मुंबई एंड ही गॉट लेटर सेटल्ड इन द फॉरेन. ठीक है. तो ये वैसे इंडियन था, इंडियन बॉर्न था. सो डायस्पोरा राइटिंग भी बोलते हैं इसको, तो जो बाहर जाके सेटल हो गया था. Okay, now the first is the Baba Baba Black Sheep. So it is a collection of short stories. ठीक है. जितने भी short stories लिखी गई हैं by Rudyard Kipling, it is under the title Baba Baba Black Sheep. ये question भी है आपका, collection of short stories. ठीक है. ये question आ चुका है. Baba Baba Black Sheep आपको match करना था कि which is the story collection written by Rudyard Kipling, and the answer is Baba Baba Black Sheep. ये आपने बचपन में पोएम पढ़ी होगी. सो जब मैं ये टाइटल बोल रही हूँ आपको पोएम आपके दिमाग में चल रही होगी. आई नो दैट. ठीक है. नेक्स्ट इज किम. So Kim is again a very important work of Rudyard Kipling, and it actually considered as a detective fiction and one of his masterpiece. ठीक है. ये एक kind of detective fiction है. ओल्ड लामा. old lama was there in this particular work, and the other person who is a boy, Kim, who was working for the Japanese troops. ठीक है, so इन दोनों का how the interaction was there, one in a search of rationality and one was a search of spirituality. Okay, so basically it actually deals with the person named as Kimball Hara. So Kim was a short form of Kimball Hara, and this Kimball Hara was an orphan person, and he was a son of surgeon. So he was son of surgeon. His father died, and then he became an orphan. Now in an Irish regiment who spent the childhood as a vagabond in Lahore, until he meets an old lama from Tibet who was actually going on the mountain for the search of spirituality. Okay, so this person, old lama, came in contact with Kim, and how Kim was influenced by this particular spiritual man, old lama, and he also goes with him to the mountain. So this is a story all about Kim. Please make a reading of it. Next is Jungle Book. तो जंगल बुक तो आपने टीवी पे भी देखी होगी बचपन में, बिकॉज इट इज अ वेरी फेमस कलेक्शन बाय रुडयार्ड किपलिंग एंड very much, children are very much fascinated from this work. I have also watched the Jungle Book. I've enjoyed a lot. So I remember the stories of Jungle Book, and you must also be able to recall the stories of Jungle Book. So please let me know chat box, have you watched Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling? आपने देखी है जंगल बुक या पढ़ा है इसके बारे में? You must be knowing the characters of the Jungle Book. Please let me know in the chat box. Okay, so who was the famous character of Jungle Book? First let me tell me that. Who was the famous character of Jungle Book? Okay, so the Jungle Book is a kind of a stories about a child named Mowgli, and he was brought by the jungle creatures. Okay, and it gives also a brief account of the law and business of the jungle. Okay, so basically this was a person who was actually adopted by the animal kingdom kind of a thing, and these jungle creatures used to take care of him, and this also Mowgli became inhabited to their environment. Fine. So this was all about Jungle Book. So this you have to remember these points that about Rudyard Kipling, and you also have to remember that Kipling was awarded a Nobel Prize in 1901. 1901 में Kipling को Nobel Prize मिला था. No, sorry. It is 1907. 1907 में उसको Nobel Prize मिला था. ठीक है, तो जैसे जीबी शॉ को 1925 में मिला था, येट्स को 1923 में मिला था, एंड Kipling was awarded a Nobel Prize in 1907, and you should also remember that he is the first English writer to receive the award. ठीक है, so he was the first English writer to have received the Nobel Prize. Fine. Is this clear? Any problem? Please post in the chat box. I will be answering your doubts. Okay, let's move ahead now. Let's writer is James Joyce. Now this James Joyce is again a famous writer of this age, and he is also known for having emerged the technique of stream of consciousness. ठीक है, जैसे मैंने आपको बताया था, the stream of consciousness is a technique in which the reader is brought directly into the mind of the character. ठीक है, तो आपको ये जो नरेटर होता है ये आपको बताएगा नहीं कि अच्छा अभी कैरेक्टर ये कर रहा है, अभी यहाँ पे जाएगा, उसके साथ ऐसा हुआ तो क्यों हुआ. The narrator will never will give you the reasons for the character actions. आपको खुद ही कैरेक्टर के माइंड में वो प्लॉट करेगा, एंड उसके इंटरनल थॉट्स, इंटरनल chaos, इंटरनल टर्बुलेंस he will portray. And now after reading about that turbulence, chaos and the mindset of the character, you have to justify his actions. So the end result or end judgment वो reader के हाथ में होता है. So that a kind of technique is known as stream of consciousness. Is this clear? Any problem? If you have not understood about stream of consciousness, I can explain again in case any problem. Okay, so that was the concept of stream of consciousness. तो अभी तो दो राइटर है, जेम्स जॉयस एंड वर्जीनिया वुल्फ. इन दोनों की राइटिंग्स में आपको स्ट्रीम ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस अबंडेंस में मिलेगा यूज होते हुए. ठीक है, सो प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट इज स्ट्रीम ऑफ कॉन्शियस, देन ओनली यू शुड विल बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड द वर्क्स ऑफ दीज टू राइटर्स. फाइन. Now the James Joyce की जो पहली जो नॉवल है और द वर्क इज द डब्लिनर्स. नाउ दिस डब्लिनर्स अगेन इसका क्वेश्चन आता है डब्लिनर्स का इन द एग्जाम, सो यू शुड नो दिस. डब्लिनर इज अ कलेक्शन ऑफ 19 short stories by James Joyce. ठीक है, so it is a collection of 19 short stories. जैसे बाबा बाबा ब्लैक शेप was a short story collection of Rudyard Kipling. Similarly, James Joyce का जो story collection है, it is known as Dubliner. So please remember the story collection because आपका ये न्यू यूनिट भी 2-3 साल से इंट्रोड्यूस हो चुका है of short story collection and इसका आपके क्वेश्चंस भी पूछे जाते हैं. So please remember it. Okay, okay. So no, I think it is 15 story collection था. 15 short stories. Just check it once with the internet. Okay, I think it is a collection of 15 short stories. Now it is because number तब भी आपसे नहीं पूछे जाते हैं. Just you have to remember that it is a short story collection. Okay. Next, Ulysses. Now Ulysses, the work also written by the Tennyson, ठीक है, and okay, one more thing I want to say about Dubliners. So basically it shows the it forms a naturalistic depiction of Irish society, ठीक है, जो Irish middle class society में जो होते थे उनका ये depiction है in the form of Dubliners, ठीक है, and how these they settled in England in the early 20th century. So उनका जो aftermath है that has been portrayed in the work Dubliners. So I was talking about Ulysses. So Ulysses is a work by Tennyson as well, in which he shows the voyage of Ulysses going to a voyage or a journey. When he returns back, he met his wife Penelope and the son Telemachus. Okay, so similar story or myth has been used by James Joyce in his work Ulysses as well. And this you have to remember that this novel is set in a single day. ठीक है, जो इस पूरी novel में description of एक दिन का दिया गया. Yes, very good देवेंद्र, it is by Tennyson. Okay, so एक दिन का पूरा description दिया गया, तो description of a single day. Okay, it has been the description of a single day has been given in this particular work Ulysses, and it shows the life of two Dubliners. What was a day and on which this life of two Dubliners has been portrayed. The day was known as the Bloomsday. ठीक है, so Bloomsday के दिन दो Dubliners की lives के बारे में description दिया गया है, and you should remember that it is concerned with a single day. ठीक है, एक ही दिन जो Bloomsday था उसके दिन दो Dubliners जो स्टोरी के जो कैरेक्टर्स थे उनका डिस्क्रिप्शन दिया है. Bloomsday. ठीक है, next is Finnegan Wakes. So Finnegan Wakes is again a important work of Joyce, and you have to remember about this, and it is a kind of a dream sequence in prose style dealing with the night event. ठीक है, जो night event के बारे में आपको इसमें बताया है, and it deals with a sequence of dreams, and it is written in prose style. तो ये एक dream sequence है, ठीक है, prose style में लिखा गया है, and it deals only with a single night. जैसे आपकी जो ये नॉवेल है फिनगन वेक्स, ये सिंगल डे को द यूलिसिस है, ये आपको सिंगल डे को डिस्क्राइब करती है. तो दिस वर्क फिनगन वेक एक्चुअली डिस्क्राइब द सिंगल नाइट. नाउ हाउ यू कैन सी दैट कि आपको जो एक कैरेक्टर के बारे में जानना है. सो ये आपने देखा जो जॉयस होता है ये सिंगल डे सिंगल नाइट को क्यों होता था, बिकॉज उस नाइट में उसके क्या थॉट्स रहते, बिकॉज योर थॉट्स चेंजेस. ठीक है, अगर कैरेक्टर को नैरेटिव सेट करना है तो वो सेम सेट ऑफ थॉट्स को लेके चलेगा. ओके, सो दैट्स व्हाई द सिंगल डे सिंगल नाइट के बारे में आपको दिखाया गया है. इवन इफ यू जस्ट रीड अबाउट द वर्जीनिया वुल्फ डैलोवे, मिसेस डैलोवे, वो भी सिंगल डे से कंसर्न है फ्रॉम मॉर्निंग टू द नाइट. And what was the aftermath of the particular characters. So you can understand the thought process को ज़्यादा focus करा जाता है as compared to the settings in the modern novel or by the writers. ठीक है, so you should remember this is a very important point, तभी आप इसका background समझ पाओगे. And the central theme of this particular work, Finnegan Wake, is a pattern of history about the fall and resurrection. So जो fall of Adam and resurrection of to the of the mankind था, तो ये आपको इसमें बताया गया in Finnegan Wake. So this was a theme which has been portrayed in this particular work, Finnegan Wakes. Next, the portrait of the artist as a young man. No, Devendra, the Ulysses has been written by Joyce as well as by Tennyson. ठीक है, तो टेनिसन ने अपनी जो वर्क है यूलिसिस का, उसमें सिर्फ उसने यूलिसिस का वॉयज डिस्क्राइब करा. इट इज अ पोम बाय बट दिस यूलिसिस इज द डिस्क्रिप्शन ऑफ अ सिंगल डे. इसमें यूलिसिस थीम को उसने लिया गया टू डिस्क्राइब द लाइफ ऑफ 2 डबलिनर्स ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर वर्क. ठीक है, एंड इट इज डील्स विद द ब्लूम्स डे. ठीक है, ब्लूम्स डे को उसमें डिस्क्राइब करा है. बट इन टेनिसन की जो पोएम है उसने सिर्फ जो यूलिसिस का मिथ है उसको ही डिस्क्राइब करा है. ही हैज नॉट अडेप्टेड इनटू अ डिफरेंट वेरिएशन और वर्जन ऑफ यूलिसिस. इज दिस क्लियर? तो आपको बस ये याद रखना है कि यूलिसिस जो वर्क है वो टेनिसन का भी है एंड जेम्स जॉयस का भी है. Yes, is it clear? Can you just type in yes in the chat box to make me understand that you have understood this thing? Okay. Now next is the portrait of the artist as a young man. So you should remember that this work is an autobiographical novel by Joyce. ठीक है, जो इसका जो वर्क है ये autobiographical है. Okay, so one more thing, Devendra, I want to tell you that जो रॉबर्ट हेरिक का 2 डैफोडिल्स है तो वो भी वर्क डैफोडिल्स रॉबर्ट हेरिक का, एंड डैफोडिल्स वर्क इज आल्सो बाय वर्ड्सवर्थ. तो आपको टाइटल्स आपको पता होना चाहिए कि एक ही टाइटल 2 राइटर्स यूज कर सकते हैं. ठीक है, सो लाइक सिमिलरली जॉयस एंड जो टेनिसन है बोथ हैव यूज्ड द सेम टाइटल यूलिसिस एज देयर द टाइटल ऑफ देयर वर्क. फाइन. नेक्स्ट, the portrait of the artist as a young man is an autobiographical work by Joyce. You have to first remember that, and it deals with the the myth of Daedalus. Now what was the myth of Daedalus? So अगर आपने Greek mythology या Greek myth सुना होगा Daedalus का तो आपको पता होगा that Daedalus was a person who was imprisoned by the king of that time. ठीक है, so जो वहाँ पे उसने क्या कहते हैं किंग था उस टाइम का, उसने Daedalus को इम्प्रिजन कर दिया था. एंड जिस टावर में उसको इम्प्रिजन करा था उसका वो टॉप फ्लोर था एंड उसमें एक ही विंडो थी. ठीक है, नाउ व्हाट हैपेंड, दिस Daedalus एंड हिज सन Icarus बोथ वर imprisoned. So now Daedalus thought कि just to escape this place we should design some wing. So Daedalus ने क्या करा, with the help of wax उसने wings डिजाइन करे और वो उसने अपने लिए और अपने सन Icarus दोनों के लिए wings डिजाइन करे and they fled in order to flee from that prison. ठीक है, now Icarus ने जो Daedalus था उसने Icarus को बोला कि डोंट गो क्लोज टू द सन. ठीक है, उसने इसको वो वार्निंग दी जब आप ये विंग्स को लेके उड़ोगे डोंट गो क्लोज टू द सन. तो व्हेन दे एक्चुअली एस्केप द टावर, जो इकारस था उसने अपनी फादर की बात Daedalus की नहीं मानी एंड ही वेंट क्लोज टू द सन एंड बिकॉज ऑफ द सन हीट उसके जो विंग्स थे इट गॉट मेल्टेड अवे, उसका जो वैक्स था विंग्स इट गॉट मेल्टेड अवे एंड ही हैज ड्राउन्ड इन द sea. So this was a myth which was there of the Greek mythology, and similar myth has been adopted by this Joyce in his work A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. ठीक है, and in this Stephen Daedalus has been portrayed as a protagonist, and the novel actually records the Stephen's development, okay, from his early childhood, who got bullied in the school, and an adolescent he actually you can say the adolescent he faced some identity crisis, and later on how he reformed and he actually developed a gradual sense of his destiny as a poet, or you can say as an artist or a patriot. ठीक है, तो उसको इसमें जो स्टीफन Daedalus जो प्रोटैगनिस्ट है उसकी जर्नी दिखाई है फ्रॉम हिज स्कूल डेज टू हिज बिकमिंग एज अ पोएट. So you should remember this and read about this work. Again, is a very important work of James Joyce. Fine. Let's move to the last author of this particular lecture, Virginia Woolf. Now, like this James Joyce, Virginia Woolf is also famous for using stream of conscience. ठीक है, and she was a part of the Bloomsbury group. ठीक है, इसका जो group था that was known as Bloomsbury group. एंड इससे भी आपके क्वेश्चन आते हैं कि आपको ब्लूम्सबेरी ग्रुप का बताना है कि इसमें कौन कौन से राइटर दैट वर एक्चुअली एसोसिएटेड विद ब्लूम्सबेरी ग्रुप. तो दिस ब्लूम्सबेरी ग्रुप क्या था, ये ग्रुप था राइटर्स का. ओके, दो जो मिलते थे गॉर्डन स्ट्रीट जो ब्लूम्सबेरी विच वॉज फेमस फॉर इन लंडन एंड विच वॉज एक्चुअली मेड फेमस बाय वर्जीनिया वुल्फ एंड वर्जीनिया बेल. ठीक है, एंड द मेंबर्स ऑफ दिस ग्रुप आर E.M. Forster, लियोनार्ड वुल्फ हस्बैंड ऑफ वर्जीनिया वुल्फ. ठीक है, देन वर्जीनिया वुल्फ was a member, और आपके जैसे गार्नेट, रॉजर फ्राई, all these were the actually the member of the Bloomsbury group. So these were some of the writers which I mentioned. just go on net and search for all the members. ठीक है, जो मैंने बताए हैं कुछ important members थे, आपको सिर्फ वर्जीनिया वुल्फ, लियोनार्ड वुल्फ, स्ट्रैची, E.M. फॉस्टर, रॉजर फ्राई, इनका नाम याद रखना है बिकॉज आपको ये आते हैं क्वेश्चंस में to actually identify the members of the Bloomsbury group. And this group, this is a very important point, please make a note of it. The Bloomsbury group was attacked by Lewis, F.R. Lewis, who is a critic who attacked Bloomsbury group calling it elitist group. ये बहुत ज़्यादा हाई-फाई ग्रुप था, रिच ग्रुप था, रिच क्लास ग्रुप था, तो उसने F.R. लीविस ने क्रिटिसाइज करा बाय कॉलिंग इट एलिटिस्ट ग्रुप. क्या बोला उसको? elitist group. Who criticized it? F.R. Lewis. ठीक है, इसने F.R. Lewis ने ब्लूम्सबेरी ग्रुप को क्रिटिसाइज करा by calling it elitist group. Fine, is this clear? Okay, let's talk about the works. So ये जो कुछ works हैं, they are very important. Now, Voyage Out is the first work that has been written by Woolf. It is the first novel, and it shows the story of Rachel Windrace, who actually embarks on a South America journey with her on a father's ship, and it actually you know what predicaments he faced during that journey, and what was the kind of a course of self discovery. ठीक है, उसने अपनी इस जर्नी को अपने आप को डिस्कवर करा, अपने बारे में जाना, and that is the main feature of the modern society as well, कि man has without meaning and man is finding meaning in his life. So man is realizing a self-worth. So similarly, Rachel Windrace in this particular work goes on a voyage to South America, and during her journey she realizes her self-worth. Okay, so this is a kind of a journey of self-discovery by Rachel Windrace. ठीक है, please remember this. It is the journey of self-discovery by Rachel Windrace. This is the main character. ठीक है, next is Jacob's Room. So Jacob's Room is another work of you can Virginia Woolf, and it is the third novel which is written by Virginia Woolf, and the novel begins in Jacob's childhood, and he follows him through his college days at Cambridge and to adulthood. So it's again a kind of a journey of the main character Jacob. And what was the story told, and this story is told mainly through the perspective of the women in his life. So Jacob की life में जितनी भी women character, female characters रही है, उनके perspective से उनका क्या राय थी, उनका क्या perspective था about the main character Jacob, it has been told through these perspective. ठीक है, understood? Any problem? Fine. Next is Mrs. Dalloway. Again, this Mrs. Dalloway, as I told you, it concerns the story in a single day. So this Clarissa Dalloway was not happy with her marriage with Richard Dalloway. ठीक है, and because she was made to marry the Richard Dalloway as a kind of security in life by his parents, but he was in love with again person named as Sally Satan and Peter Walsh. ठीक है, so she actually was in love with Peter Walsh, who was very enigmatic and demanding, and because of these characters she didn't marry Peter Walsh and she married to Richard Dalloway, with whom she was not able to connect emotionally and she was not happy in her marriage. ठीक है, so Peter basically reintroduces these kind of conflicts by paying a visit that morning. So हमें कैसे पता चलता है कि she was in relation with Peter Walsh, because जब Peter उसके घर आता है Mrs. Dalloway के, that is Clarissa Dalloway, तो वो पुरानी बातें याद दिलाता है, तुम्हें याद है हम ऐसा करते थे, we were like this, we were like that. Then we came to know कि if she is unhappy today, why? Because she was not in a good relationship in the past. ठीक है, so that's why I told you ना कि जब present characteristic आपका modern character का आपको उसके past से, उसके conflict, उसके chaos से, उसके thoughts से पता चलता था. This was the kind of story which was portrayed by Virginia Woolf also in Mrs. Dalloway. So this is the one plot. ठीक है, second plot में एक there was another character named as Sergeant Warren Smith, who was also a veteran of the World War I, and he was suffering from identity crisis. ठीक है, he was very stressed at that point of time, and he spent his day in a park with his Italian wife Lucrezia. Okay, and what happened later at that day, when he prescribed involuntary commitment to a psychiatrist hospital, he commits suicide by jumping out of the window, because वो तो stressful था, उसका वर्ल्ड वॉर का जो भी रिपरकशंस था उसके माइंड को इतना ज़्यादा अफेक्ट कर रहा था दैट ही वाज नॉट बी एबल टू आइडेंटिफाई हिज आइडेंटिटी। वो समझ ही नहीं पा रहा था वो क्यों, मतलब क्या आइडेंटिटी, व्हाट इज द वैल्यू ऑफ हिज लाइफ इन दिस पर्टिकुलर वर्ल्ड, उसका क्या सेल्फ वर्थ है। एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट ही वाज एक्चुअली यू नो वेंट टू सी अ साइकाइट्रिस्ट, जहाँ पे ही कैन नॉट you know take all this kind of treatment, and he ultimately, to escape his life, he committed suicide. Now what happened later, at that day only, morning evening का scene था ये, तो evening scene में क्या होता है, there was a party at Clarissa's house, Clarissa Dalloway, and there she comes to know about the suicide of Septimius, Surgeon Septimius, okay. And this how it actually considers an effort to preserve the purity of the happiness. She realizes her worth, and this is a kind of a depicts a modern society that people are all engulfed in their thoughts, apni feelings mein, and this is the kind of idea which was portrayed by Virginia Woolf through the technique named as stream of consciousness. ठीक है, तो ये जो मेन कैरेक्टर है इनका दो प्लॉट चल रहा है यहाँ पे, एंड आपको इन दोनों प्लॉट को कनेक्ट करके इन दी एंड देयर वाज अ पार्टी जहाँ पे ये चीज कनेक्ट होती है, एंड क्लैरिसा बिकम्स वेरी शॉक्ड, you know, by hearing about this suicide, and all the people from her past came to that party. जितने भी क्लैरिसा के लाइफ के जो पास्ट के जो मेंबर्स थे सब उस पार्टी में आते हैं, and these people narrative decides the Clarissa character and what the repercussions of in her life. ठीक है, so this was all about Mrs. Dalloway. To the Lighthouse, again a very important work of Virginia Woolf. Can you just tell me in the chat box what are the three parts of the To the Lighthouse? बिकॉज ये अगेन क्वेश्चन है नेट का, आपको तीन ऑप्शंस दिए गए थे, आप में उसमें से आइडेंटिफाई करना था कौन सा ऑप्शन उस थ्री पार्ट्स का नहीं है. ठीक है, प्लीज लेट मी नो इन द चैट बॉक्स, डू यू नो द थ्री पार्ट्स ऑफ द वर्जीनियस वोल्फ टू द लाइट हाउस? Okay, and if you're enjoying this session, then please like this session. If you're finding this session informative and it is helping you to prepare well, then please like the session as well. Okay, now this lighthouse is the work which is based on Woolf's recollection of the family holidays. Okay, so she went on a holiday and what memory she has made, so it's a recollection of those memories. Again, stream of conscious has been brought into play. ठीक है, past and present को connect करना था, and then you come to know the chaos or the conflict that is going in the character's life. Okay, and this story shows the contrast between the maternal and that is Mrs. Ramsay. The Ramsay is the Mrs. Ramsay is a character in this particular work, and the self-centered, or you can say that the poetry reciting and the absurd philosopher Mr. Ramsay. So Mr. Ramsay and Mrs. Ramsay दो कपल, मतलब एक कपल थे, एंड उसका जो मिसेस रैम्से थी उसका क्या पार्ट शो करा है इस नॉवल में, इमोशनल पार्ट, सेंटिमेंटल पार्ट, मैटरनल पार्ट, एंड इसका जो मिस्टर रैम्से का उसका टिपिकल एक मॉडर्निस्ट मैन का कैरेक्टर है कि ही वॉज वेरी सेल्फ सेंटर्ड, ही वॉज वेरी obsessed with himself, very absurd and a philosopher. So this was a kind of a thought conflict जो था दोनों का इसमें इस वर्क में पोर्ट्रे करा है. And as I told you, this novel has been divided into three sections. The first is the widower's direction. Next is widower. The window. The window was the first section, and it describes basically the summer day and the Ramses holiday into that, but with their children. ठीक है, तो first section क्या है? The window है. Second section क्या है इसका? Can you let me know in the chat box what is the second section of this particular work? If you know, the second section and the third section are also the part of this particular work, and you must be knowing what are the what is the second and third section of this work. First is the window. Then second is I think time passes. The second section is time passes, and the third is I'm not getting the name. Can you just search on the net? The third section क्या था? I think the first is the window, time passes, and there's a third section as well. I think the lighthouse. Yes, I got it. Okay. First is the window, second is time passes, and to the lighthouse. ठीक है. So first है ठीक है, ये 3 सेक्शंस हैं, ठीक है, टू द लाइट हाउस के, कि ये आपको याद रखने हैं, व्हाट आर द 3 सेक्शन ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर वर्क, बिकॉज ये अगेन मैं बता रही हूँ आपको, से क्वेश्चन आपसे पूछा जा चुका है, ठीक है. एंड द लास्ट सेक्शन, द लाइट हाउस, इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट सेक्शन. वाई? बिकॉज इट शोज द एफर्ट्स ऑफ लिली टू recapture to recapture the memories or the revelations in shape and size, and basically on how she actually recollects it through the paintings and her effort of Mrs. Ramsay to reach the lighthouse. So basically here actually Lily was fond of painting, and through her painting she used to recollect her memories of the of her pastime. ठीक है? So this was about to the lighthouse. Next, Orlando. So now this Orlando is again a very important work. Just the one thing which I'm telling you, you just have to remember that. You just have to remember that the Orlando, a biography, is a novel by Virginia Woolf, and it was published. And it is actually kind of a journey from Elizabethan to modern times. ठीक है, जो Elizabethan टाइम था वहाँ से लेकर जो मॉडर्न टाइम्स की जर्नी है, व्हाट अदर एजेस केम, कैसे कैसे डेवलपमेंट हुआ लिटरेचर, all this journey has been portrayed in this work Orlando. ठीक है, so you just have to remember that it is a journey from Elizabethan time then to modern time. ठीक है, you just have to remember that it's a journey, and the full title is Orlando, a biography. Fine. Next is A Room of One's Own. It is a very important work and a critical work as well, because by writing this, Virginia Woolf demanded that yes, a woman should be given a room of his own to actually think about or to reflect on her thoughts and ideas. ठीक है, so you should remember that it is a feminist essay. Okay. It is a feminist essay which is written by Woolf, and it is based on the 2 lectures on women and fiction. ठीक है, and the author describes the educational need and the financial prejudices and the disadvantage against which women are entitled to in the society. And she also argued that women will not be able to gain financial freedom until and unless she has been provided the privacy, and that is implied with the title A Room of One's Own. A woman should be given privacy to actually evolve in her own sphere. And this she also pays a tribute to the previous writer like Aphra Behn, Jane Austen and Bronte sisters. ठीक है, मैंने आपको बताया था Jane Austen who started writing. Jane Austen से पहले Aphra Behn started writing. ठीक है, she was a part of the Restoration age, then Romantic age में Jane Austen आई, and then in Victorian age Bronte sisters आई, it is Charlotte, Eliot and Charlotte Bronte, Emily Bronte and Anne Bronte. These sisters came, and she has paid, this Virginia Woolf has paid tribute to them in her work A Room of One's Own. Any problem, please post in the chat box. In case you have any problem, you have not understood anything, you can just post in the chat box. I will be answering your doubts. So that's all about Virginia Woolf. So I have tried to cover the important writers and their works. I hope you have enjoyed the lecture and you have gained the most insights from these particular lectures. Okay, and if you really have enjoyed the lecture and made notes, then please like the session as well to mark your attendance, and please stay tuned for the 1 PM session also, because कुछ writers मैंने इसमें cover नहीं करे हैं. I will be talking about in this particular 1 PM session. ठीक है, तो पहले तो मैं question and concept basis पे चलूंगी. Question पहले आपको answer करना है, and then I will be telling you that why is the right option, and उस writer के बारे में भी बताऊंगी. Fine. So please stay tuned for 1 PM session, and please take care of yourself, and goodbye. Yes, thank you, Devendra.